And already knocking on the door, right, is our last speaker in this track. It's Alexey Kovaliov. So he is actually the co-founder of Agile Lithuania, right? I'm not lying.
Yes, I am. Hello,
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, very active in Lithuania, in public sector, all over. So I'm just giving a stage to you, Alexey, and let's not burn time. So
Oh,
go ahead.
can I start right one?
Of course, definitely.
Okay. So thank you very much. Thank you for joining. And today we have an intriguing name for the speech about epic battle of company and feudalism. That's another methodology for the Scaled Agile. Scaled Agile or so-called Semi-Agile, and I will try to explain this. Last time to abandon the ship, last moment. It will be about organizational design, Scaled Agile teams, topologies, and transition between different approaches. So if you're not big fan of these topics, I think Agile Tour has a lot of other interesting stuff. If you know someone particularly who is lost somewhere in different tracks, invite them in. Okay, so let's start, and I hope that our organizers will help you if there will be some questions. And I also put some poll question, and I will give a signal when to answer that. Please don't answer that upfront because you don't know the context. So the context. That will be a heartbreaking talk about our own experience. This is a real case study. Of course, it's anonymized and obfuscated, etc., but that is an absolutely real and fresh experience. It's about us, who are us is EIS, Oxygen Insurance Solutions Group. We are an international company. We produce a big platform for the insurance. It's from something like ERP or something like business support systems, etc., etc. It's lots of models, lots of components. It's a platform to build the final business solution. So I will not speak about just understand that this is a big product of many parts. And it's also used not as a final end customer product, but as a platform to build the final final solution. This is our place in the flow. Like this is if this is a value flow from the engineering to the client, or we are in the back office because we create a base solution for all our services and partners, etc. And they actually work with clients and produce the final value for them. So we are there. Our organization, everything here is not for the advertisement. It's about just to give a context of the organization because that will be important. Organization of engineering is something like that. We have a thing called program, and it's kind of a multi-stream, multi-domain initiative. Which works by the annual roadmaps. It's roughly, we have a number of product domains, which are like subdivisions with the dedicated product management, agile teams inside. We have platform domain. Yeah, I highlight that with some form of product management and agile teams. We have program governance. I'm actually representing this box, the governance. I'm a program manager of this initiative, and I'm also a lead for the platform domain. We have a number of shared services teams or system teams. It sounds a bit like safe, but it's not safe, actually, but something like that. So this is our engineering organization. Some numbers. So it's 10 plus domains, 10 plus divisions, 50 plus releasable product components. And because the solution is microservice architecture based and component based, all of these are separate releasables. 30 something, to be honest, it's about 36 right now. Agile teams, 5 countries, 4 time zones. So this is, the picture is much simpler than the reality. This is the reality. Fortunately, everyone works by the same cadences. We have annual roadmap planning, we have quarterly roadmaps, we split them into the sprints. Roughly, it's 4 sprints per the quarter, 4 quarters per year. And yeah, we understand, we do the road mapping, I would say, we're still evolving in that area, but the overall approach, the roadmap shows the overall strategic topics, directions. There is a delta for deviation, plus, minus, etc., etc. The only fixed scope is for the sprint plans. The only, I would say, fixed, we also mark what is mandatory for the quarter roadmap, and we focus on that. So that's why I have bolded these two arrows. Like, these are the real plans we strive to implement. In all teams, in all of that zoo of the components, teams, and the domains, we have a standardized sprint structure, which allow us to conduct practically Scrum of Scrums. It's something like that. We start simultaneously. It's a 3 weeks sprint, because we need that feature freeze week to jump into the stabilization and preparation for the next sprint. And also we keep our release for additional week in the quarantine. Quite popular word now, and then we release it publicly. So we have public releases of production ready versions of all this bundle every 3 weeks, roughly. We have teams within these domains. They are owners of specific components. For example, if we have some product domain like CRM, and there are a bunch of the different components, something for UI, something for the gateway, something for the microservices, backend, some frameworks, libraries, etc. We have absolutely clear owners. In some cases, these teams are limited by the technology profile, like UI team or backend team. In some cases, it's a vertical team already. They can cover whole spectrum of the technologies. Speaking about this spectrum of technologies, overall solution looks more abstractly like that. So it's a really big stuff, multi-layer, multi-tier architecture, multi-component, lots of elements, roughly like product domains cover some of these components. Of course, they have some touch points in between. We also have the platform domains and some tooling domains, platform domains, which creates the instruments to build all of that. Excuse me. So, for example, if we have here some nice dialog, nice window as part of the CRM system, data is not real. So of course, we have quite an advanced network of the cross-domain dependencies and handoffs on the go. For example, just to produce this kind of screen, roughly we need to work with all these teams you can see on the slide. It starts from the platform teams who provide the tools and the instruments and the frameworks. When some team probably focused on the backend produces the microservices, then UI team produces the gateways and the UIs. They also need to cooperate with usability team, which is shared resources. They produce the release candidates and releasable deliverables like this box. They cooperate with the system team, CI/CD, DevOps team, who also deploy that for them. They have actually released. So this is and that's for every piece, and that's for every team, and that's for every domain. Just a reminder, 50 releasable components and 30 plus teams. We had quite a journey over the 3 years of existing of our program. We started from this. Yeah, I understand that now all the pure agilists, they are, let's say, suffering just, and they are bleeding. They see the centralized QA there and centralized this, etc., etc. So we resolved that long ago. So QA is a part of the Scrum teams. Then we had some more centralized components. We managed to centralize, to decentralize, to split them as well, and to verticalize teams. Still quite often practice that due to the profile differences, some teams are pure front end and some teams are pure back end, even if staffed with the QAs. We are on the way. We are on the way to verticalize the teams. So maybe some teams will still be, for the most complex part, for the something we can call core components, for the regional backend. We will keep them as a backend teams, but the majority of teams who ever touch the front end, they are turning into the vertical feature teams, as we call them now. It's a bad word, not standard. We are still thinking about how to call it properly. We also, in order to decrease these hands-offs, etc., we actively promote the contribution to the platforms if a team possesses the needed competencies to do that, because platforms usually are quite complex. And yes, we have platforms teams centralized. They're somewhere else. This structure have obvious benefits. Otherwise, we would not use it. Otherwise, we would not be able to deliver. So it's, first of all, it's naturally designed organization. Everything is very clear. Who does what? It's very good for planning. Stable domains, stable capacities, or manageable capacities and foreseeable capacity. We have clear ownership of all aspects: code, times, CI, releases, support, etc., etc. Every piece of this complex platform has a clear hands where it belongs to. These teams possess the quite deep domain knowledge, both functional and technical. It's a reasonable cognitive load. Yeah, I learned this smart word recently. It's about the amount of knowledge you need to handle. And actually, because that's limited to some domains, some components, so that's possible to understand and keep everything in mind. It's also reasonable communication load, despite of all those hands-off, what you saw on the slide with all these arrows, etc. But components, dependencies, intercomponents dependencies are not changing very rapidly, so it's quite stable. So teams learn how to communicate with whom, who are they dependent on, and setting all this communication networks and handling that. So it's not dynamic. It's still possible to optimize. Yes, I just demonstrated it. Had we changed a lot in the team setup and grew. Actually, we grew for over the 3 years. We grew like 3 times probably as an organization. And as you also saw, that we are able to change the flow, to change the skill profiles, etc., etc. It's quite flat, but yes, we have hierarchy, but it's scalable to up to 30 to 50%, I would say, in additional heads and hands, without even changing the domains or unit structure, meaning the managers of those domains, etc. Obvious benefits. By the way, I understand that questions should go at the end, but at this point, I would like to ask if anyone has any questions about the context. Context is over.
Be brave, people.
Okay, if you will have any questions, well, I really love questions. So, despite of all this impressive organization and processes and optimizations on the go, etc., there are some annoying theories. Why are they annoying? They make me jealous. And I'm always annoyed when something makes me jealous. First theory, which annoys me, is a Conway's law. Conway's law says that organizational and design, the structure of organization produce the product which reflects the organization. So there is a limit of innovation or flexibility of design. So if you are organized in a certain way, then that will be your architecture like forever. And that's okay for the short term. That's a stability, but that's really not strategically aligned or some kind of lock-in. Like we are locking us within our own organization because it's created according to this architecture. I have my own extension of the Conway's law. So initial design of the solution produces the organization, which is the best or the easiest to implement that product and to support it. And then that organization start producing the designs. And yes, that is absolutely correct. I can confirm that. The most annoying theory And thanks to my good friend Alexey Kovaliov, who is a very well-known agile coach from Ukraine and a great evangelist of less. He have absolutely great series of the articles I recommend to everyone. They are published on the LinkedIn for 4 parts about organizational design. And in some of those parts, he introduces this non-standard terminology of the component feudalism. Because if organization is organized like every piece of organization owns specific component, then that creates some area of the, yes, that creates the good ownership there. But then there is some kind of, this is a risk. I'm not saying it's happening all the time or in every place, but it just creates an ecosystem for, how to say, local prioritization. Let's call it that way. Alexey formulates that in more rush or harsh words, but actually that's really worrying if you look for the long-term perspective. And yes, we're already having the cases when we need a single priority across the domains, and that will be our story, how we resolve that. When flow of the work from the product management is stable and well aligned to existing domains and component team structure, everything is fine. But when we need to accelerate something, for example, some totally new stuff which touches multiple domains, or maybe even create something which is not aligned with the existing component ownership map, then it's always challenging because that's not supported by organization. And that makes me thinking, at least. Then I studied less over these years, and what stays the less, and the less evangelists. Component teams are evil, platform teams are evil, platform as a product, evil laughter. They are making fun of that. And yes, everything you need to have is the feature teams, like vertical, with the T-shaped skills, etc., etc. And you go to the most, how to say, the worst competitor of the less, to SAFe. They are actively criticizing each other. It says something similar, but not the same. Still, component teams are evil. And actually, SAFe has no own theory of the team organization. There is a great book I recommend to everyone interested. So this is a must read for everybody who are who is interested in the organizational design. Team topologies. There is even the site Team Topologies Academy with the online courses, etc. Fortunately, this time, these folks at least introduced that they can be platform team for the complex solution. But instead of component teams, again, you need to have these feature teams, vertical teams. In this case, it's called stream aligned team, something which produces end-to-end business functionality. There are also another kind of team, like enabling team, are more like teachers, coaches, somebody who can mentor a stream-aligned team to, for example, to bring them new technology, to teach them on to do something new. For example, if we have the team who works only on the back end and they start studying the front end to be vertical, then we need to assign some kind of mentors who supports that process. And they go, and for some time, not always, not forever, during some period of time, this enabler team are helping or bringing some new designs. The only standalone and component style team is valid to be complicated subsystem if that is a team or component which requires absolutely, for example, rare or expensive skills, for example, artificial intelligence or some video processing or something like that, which is not like regular development of the software. So we have all these theories, and of course, studying all that and thinking about yourself and reflecting and retrospective of all the challenges we had, probably because of the too many handoffs and all these cross-domain arrangements, etc., all that overhead, we thinking and we are experimenting with what can be done differently. First of all, trying with some projects and some virtual organizations. So we have very challenging projects. one of those. I will first I will say about the structure of this project. So it's a project, 6 months. We need to create like a brand new minimal viable product for some, for example, for the new domain. We are adding domain and we need a minimal viable product for that domain. Scope is huge and undefined. So we need to define it on the go. But we understand that that will touch this domain X, some other domain, some another domain, which is platform. And we have number of teams. Teams are from this original domain who are new to the technology. We have another domain who are quite savvy on technology, but still separated. We have some platform folks who are either only working on those core components, but they are creators of the technology. They are really good. They can be enablers. We have vertical team who are just not aware about that domain. Absolutely. So all of these folks, none of these folks, they don't understand anything about the functionality of that domain. These folks understand functionality, but they don't understand the technology, roughly. They understand, but they're still quite new. We also had to involve partner because we wanted to accelerate it. So we need additional staffing, so we have partner also for the staffing augmentation. Speaking about the traditions of the collaborative work, etc., this always were inside of their own domain. Very rare interactions with somebody from some alliance. This is quite often, continuously, very rare. So this is the project. We need to make something out of this, some virtual structure, to accomplish this challenging scope within the quite defined deadline. Appreciate your answers to the poll, or you can comment it right now by voice. I hope organizers allows that. What did we choose to try? Safe or less approach for the team
Everybody
topology?
have an access. Everybody have a...
Excuse me?
I was just asking if everybody can see the poll. I see already two answers.
There is a poll. It's here. If you go to the agenda, sessions, etc. So I cannot see the results probably because I cannot. I need to submit it. I don't know. I cannot submit in order to not. Okay,
I see the results. Okay, so we have only 4 answers.
Okay.
And it's like 50-50.
50-50. Okay. So just a reminder, we have a method approach, which is like totally not us, and approach which is somehow or very similar to us. Of course, we chosen this. Yeah, of course, we wanted to be the real agile because less is as agile as it can only be. We chosen to be less inspired. We created this like flow and this virtual organization of number of teams. We mixed them, we expanded them. We tried to create them as vertical as possible. Didn't happen in some cases, but we tried to do it. Yes, we had all of that virtual organization covered by the quite dedicated and quite empowered project manager. We had single backlog, we had single PR with team of proxies and BAs. We had a clear lead architect to supervise all that work in all those multiple teams and provide technological guidelines and designs, some high level, etc. And we tried to break this annoying component feudalism walls as much as possible. One team spirit, joint effect, joint sprint events, joint planning, joint retro, joint review with the mandatory system demo, sometimes even delivered by the multiple teams, etc. Continuous cross-team synchronization, sync points, knowledge sharing, mixed teams for the knowledge sharing. This explains the domain, this explains the function, the technology, etc., etc. In the backlog, no pre-assignments for the team, so product owner, the PO comes to this joint refinement or to the joint planning, and so there is, as we called it, feature fair. Like everybody says, I will take this, I will take that, etc., etc. We really wanted to localize the dependencies between these components which are being created there. And if anything is needed in the platform, here we are. We have folks from the platform, they can do it directly in the platform. Something like that. So this is the flow design, like we have product manager, there's some set of the folks who are digging into the scope, because I remind, scope is not ready, we need to dig in. So it is a mandatory Kanbanized stage for the scope preparation here. So we can bring something for the joint sprint planning for all this feature fair. And then the number of teams, they are choosing who does what, agreeing or marking the cross teams dependencies if this happens. And then at the end of the sprint, we have the joint retro and demo and retro of retros, etc., etc. And here am I. And I'm needed here to also help with everything we need from the external flow, from other domains, from other teams, etc., etc. So it was something like that. It was like a giant leap from the component structure for some folks directly to the less. And yes, there were a lot of motivational talks and self-motivational talks. Yes, we can, but no, we cannot. And that will be that's the current assessment of this initiative. And assessment is, so yes, if those theories were annoying, then this assessment is double annoying, I would say. Yes, we minimized the dependencies, but teams were not vertical initially, so we had to create them vertical. So yeah, we had dependencies previously externalized, then now we have internal dependencies, but it's improved on the go. It takes time. Now we have 4 or 6 teams are vertical roughly, and they are able to do the whole feature from the front end to the back end, but it took some time. It's not happening like that despite of all motivational talks. Dependencies on that's the only thing which was really managed. We flashed all the backlog for the platform, so they were open-handed. Like if there is anything for the platform, we will do it, and they were doing that. What was needed for this MVP specifically. And with external dependencies, it was more tough. So yes, I as a project manager had to deal with all that and facilitate all those dependencies between different domains. Here, our component organization came up. So we understood that we had to pull more domains into this stream. That would be easier. We resolved that either by agreements, negotiations about the priorities, or by just contribution to other domains code. So that was agreed. Sometimes it's the easiest way, but it's easier to say than to do, because you are, again, this additional load of knowledge, additional cognitive load, let's use this smart word, because you need to go into another domain components, understand it, and put what you need into some place there, and agree with all the new guys you never met before. Like I will put this there, and you will own that for like forever, and that's a tough task. So that's happening. That's possible, but that's slow. Kanban really helped, but only partially, because key was not there. Key was in the approach for the scoping and approach previously, because I remind that if you have component teams, then the backlog for them becomes component backlog. So it's like a clear, all the backlog items are very much quite technical, I would say. They are almost system level. They are not scenarios based, because they are, if you create a backlog for the some technical component team, then the backlog turns into that technical component capabilities, described exactly in that way. When we tried to describe that in the vertical, so approach with the feature, with the real scenario-based approach, etc., it was much longer and much more painful than expected to agree, to change, to teach, to prepare all the stuff, like, okay, what artifacts we are doing, what will be the format of the backlog records, what will be the format of the release notes, because remind, we need to start releasing that stuff somehow. So yes, it's a great foundation now for the future, but it didn't help for this project, and we had a lot of turmoil there, because for example, we had underloaded teams at the beginning, because we were not able to produce enough scope. refined and clarified, etc. System demos was great. Again, no scope, still quite disconnected teams, but now they emerged. It's like third time in a row when we are doing the really big, like the long scenarios and where many teams have contributed to prepare that, and we're doing that a live demo, and everybody likes that. So yes, now it's great. Initially, it's not happened like that in a couple of sprints. It's not happening. Continuous learning again. It's learning takes longer. Learning curve is always not exponential, and here we start learning something new, which is not described in the majority of the agile books. People don't want to learn some other stuff if they find it not really engaging or boring, etc., etc. And because they already learned so much that this load, this knowledge baggage is already quite big. So okay, so it's really hard to load, to know about everything or be flexible enough to understand everything in any domain, in any design, etc., etc. Closing gaps in tech skills, that's yes, but again, learning curve. And this one team spirit, no. Almost everybody wants to get back. So was it like a total failure? No, of course not. It's just, I just want to highlight that, yeah, of course, due to the energy of the teams and due to the, yeah, so they were not happy, let's call it politely, if we call it not happy, but they did it because they are good teams. And, but supposed to be nice initiative turned into something pragmatic, nervous, and tiresome. And that's the main outcome of this story. With the huge effort of leads, product management, teams themselves, me as well, we managed to create a hell of scope, a lot of stuff. We introduced the new processes. We changed them on the way a few times. So we were really agile organization here. We were adapting, but we were getting annoyed because everything is changing all the time, and like you cannot explain it because you don't have the practice yet. If practice is not there, explanation is a bit abstract. So we revised a lot of designs together. That is great. We improved the platform and the cookbooks, which had some gaps. We learned how to facilitate joint events. Believe me, it's very easy to say or to draw in the book, but it's not easy to facilitate when you have number of teams. All those everything is happening online, of course. Yeah, I forgot to say it's already natural. Nobody's in the office. We were distributed between 4 countries again. So I would say it's nice. And we learned a lot of that, and we will make the MVP, maybe not in the size of the desired MVP, but what scope we clarified and prioritized. That work was never ending, and it's happening right now. So MVP will be there. Happiness will not be there, and that's our actually main lessons learned. In order to wrap up, I recommend that it was worth doing anyway. Would I do that again in this condition? No. I just underestimated number of factors, and you need to really, first of all, study those annoying theories much better. Don't just scratch the surface. Study them more before you play with such things as organizing the work of many people. Just for the sizing of this, yesterday the number was 92 people in this acceleration project, in this pilot. First, you need to understand what will be input. Scoping is the key. If you can create a great organization of teams and the flows and etc., but if there is no scope, or scope is different, like you have I don't know, the square hole, and you try to put this something triangle, and it's not fitting in, and they need to be aligned. There is no single step for the culture if everybody is in their own department with the clear ownership, which is was I described in the company context, to something virtual, totally open, totally collaborative, everybody is mixed, etc., etc. And the storming and forming period of teams, it's real stuff. It's taking some time. Veterans don't like aliens. They don't believe they will really own, so they put the heart in the implementation because they are like temporary. The transparency and the skill comparison, like produce additional, I would say, not very friendly environment. People start conflicting. There are different practices. What they code or review or some other stuff in one team is different in another team. So they start arguing. And yeah, I've invented the term Schrödinger team during this time, which shows my feelings. Schrödinger teams is if it's somewhere in some place of organization, team you just don't know if it's how to say, alive or not alive. But you can be sure that if you open that organization, the team will not be alive anymore. So that's beware of this stuff. Try to analyze your landscape of organization and know the people before you start doing the organizational changes. Some motivators which are heavily, I would say, advertised by Agile community are not real motivators for really a lot of people, especially if they get used to work in another mode, like, working on the business and end client features are always motivating. No, people like working on the complex components. It's just more interesting for them. Creating something with UI is just, it's a boring stuff for some folks. Eating your dog food, like, okay, you created component, now create something to use that component. Not motivating. Joint events, annoying. Not for all. People get used to that. Remember, it's not really. We learned how to do that, but it's not a priori motivator. Just know about that. Even if some book says so, transparency, continuous learning, collaboration. No, it's not for some time. It will take time to become a new habit probably, and sometimes you will lose folks on the go because it will be painful habit for some people. For the really complex solutions, there must be something like platform, and there must be some really serious limits for shared code ownership. The amount of the time is spent on all the conflicts or opinions when multiple teams are contributing to the same code. And it was really frustrating. And yeah, there must be some clear ownership and some kind of limits, guardrails. It's impossible to allow that everybody contributes everywhere. So that needs to be really seriously designed when you're really starting creating the scaled agile delivery, when everybody works on the same backlog, aka same code. And specialization, some level wider, not just backend, not just front end, but some reasonable specialization and limited cognitive load on teams. I think it's still quite valid. You cannot create everybody as universal as possible. Joint events can be really boring and wasteful, especially if you don't don't have the proper input, and if you are doing that first time. And it's very easy to fall in this feeling that, okay, it's a nonsense, let's not do it. We didn't drop that. We learned how to do it better, but we dropped some of these initiatives and simplified that on the go. Yeah. There must be possibility. The joint events are good when everybody hears and understands stuff. If you're joining people for the new functionality, for the new domain, maybe for the new technology, they just sit there and they don't understand what's happening. There is no engagement. This meeting becomes some boring routine. Summary: component organization are easy to build and can be reliable, even if not attractive. Streamlined organization can be destructive, even if being attractive. But yes, it's hard to manage. So practically we managed that destruction, and hopefully that will build a good foundation for the future, how to say, optimization of the organization. Scope reform first if you need to change, skills second, organization and flow third. Don't try to do all of that simultaneously. It will be a really hard time for everybody. That's all. Thank you. Any questions?
I don't see yet any questions in the chat, but I have myself probably 3 questions already. Okay, so you mentioned that this project involved 92 people, I think, something like this. So what kind of challenges you had when it came to the cultural changes? Because you mentioned that not everybody is willing to change a bit. So how did you do this with various seniorities, with different probably nationalities even, right?
Yes, it's a different seniority, different maturity on functionality, or different maturity on the technology. It's different style of work. Some people got used more to work inside. So that's why I put all of these dimensions here. If you remember that these are the essential dimensions which I believe, maybe I missed something else, but that's actually everything that you need to understand from here. Who is the manager actually? Who is their scope owner? How are they arranged inside? What is their tradition of the collaborative work? What is their technical skills and the functionality skills, etc. So all of that is really important. All of that introduced. How did we manage that? Very careful planning up front, which was, as now it's obvious, insufficient. Yes, so that's why I called it semi-agile. So yes, we have this and scope preparation phase and the planning before this project kicked off, because it was not possible to give. So, and during that planning, we did not estimate some of those cultural moments. We just thought that if there is a team, then it's a team. In some cases, we had to teach people how to collaborate or do something new, etc., etc. In some cases, we had to teach people how to be open to some new domain, etc., because they wanted to lock in their own garden, just as Krivitsky said in his annoying article. So people really want to stay there. It's there. It's know how to break that by energy and persuasion, and not giving up. So it will be really tough for everybody who will try to do it. You will get kicks from everybody. Just continue, push and adapt, listen and filter to what they say, what is just some kind of resentfulness or this cultural impact, or something is really important, and show that if they notice that something is not working, for example, meeting arrangements or something else, demonstrate actively as a facilitator of all this stuff. You need to demonstrate that if there is something possible to change, you will change and adjust. But the overall ideology is this. Let's go in that way.
Okay, so I see one very good question from Juan. So he asks you, do you think that the transformation process would be more successful if you took it in smaller steps instead of trying to make big changes?
Of course, but we had 6 months and the new product to launch for the market. So it was take it or leave. It was it was a choice. Either we say, oh, no, it's impossible. We need to evolve into smaller steps and we need another year maybe, etc. And yeah, there was a lot of opinions that we need like 3 more years just to start, for the first version. And it was a choice. We tried to follow the business priority and try to create the first version in half a year instead of 3 years. Or we are just losing that opportunity. So yes, that was an opportunistic approach, yeah.
We also have a question from Neringa, and she asks when you would recommend team topologies theory approach for implementation, when it could be useful and in what context?
When you recommend team topologies theory approach, practically for all product organization. I think it's much more flexible than the bit zealotish less. It foresees the complexity and the historical reasons, that theory, which I like a lot. I'm a pragmatic guy, and it's practically if you have a sustainable organization, or you need to build sustainable organization to work on the product, but still have some flexibility to prioritize and to mobilize more teams to storm in this certain area, in the certain priorities, etc. Then I would say this approach of this team topologies, which still allows some specialization and speaks about that, and component teams and platform teams, but promotes these feature teams or stream-aligned teams. That's the most, I would say, pragmatic and realistic approach I know at the moment. Maybe tomorrow I will learn something new, but any kind of R&D for the product, maybe even in projects, for the projects as well, but they are short time. If you start building the organization for the short time, you will remember my speech.
We will. And another question from my side would be like, did you had enough knowledge, skills, resources to do this all, or you needed some help from any kind of outside organizations, other companies? I don't know, anybody.
No, no outsiders, only insiders.
Only insiders.
Yeah. There was a team of enthusiasts who wanted to do that. It was very important that the leadership of engineering and the product management and some other key stakeholders here supported this idea. Without that, it would be not possible. If we would start fighting or arguing on the leadership level, it would be a total disaster. So it mostly was internal decision, but I admit that I should have learned some books better before starting this project, not on the go. It was more like you study that and you see like, oh my God, what have I done? It was like that. It's better to study before. So that's why it's a message. If you have something like that in the future, get ready up front, not on the go.
So did you have any changes in hierarchy? Major?
Yes, but the overall approach was not changed. The hierarchy is, we have like, okay, so we have if we speak about hierarchy, like managers and mid-managers, etc., you have one line in the product management, another in engineering. It was just temporary switches of some people who came into this team. So we played like, we are like whole virtual domain. So we played this game. But the approach to this hierarchy, we didn't change.
So are you still working with this approach?
Yeah, until the end of the 6 months.
So when is the deadline?
New year.
Okay. Well, so we need to hear the what's next in January and how it all went.
We are building the adapted permanent structure of that domain for that new domain for that product, and we will pass over that to that domain to the more regular, let's say, approach. But also we will learn the lessons, and next time we need something cross-domain, some kind of accelerated or expeditized way, we will do it better. I think that will happen. Usually we have from 3 to 5 initiatives per year like that. Previously, we were not really managing them. This time we had to manage it tough because of the tight deadline and all those parallel clarification of scope, etc., to not miss the opportunity. Next time we will be more ready. And we will continue doing that. We will do that again. Oops, we will do that again.
Yeah. It's good to hear that you have a chance to do this kind of projects in general in your company. And
yeah.
that, yeah.
Comes the advertisement. Yes, group. Hey.
Okay, so thank you so much.